Howdy y'all, this is A.R. Cavley and welcome back to my channel as we continue our adventures in Traveler 2300, or 2300 AD, sorry, on Beta Canum 4. We're going to our characters last time. They had just completed and escaped an ambush set out by some kind of Imperial French intelligence agency. I did develop the high-up person that kind of ordered that hit for to pull out later sometime. Maybe even in this, next couple of adventures. We'll see, since she is pretty local to Beta Canum Venaticorum, so if she is going to do something, then unless she gets transferred later on, she's probably going to have to do it now. When we left them, they were staying pretty much at Rebco's expense, at their invite at Adrian. They completed their mission, they got extra stuff, and they've been laying low while Rebco has been working with the French authorities to kind of smooth things over, helping them with their investigation. Fortunately, Rebco's legal division has kind of acted as a buffer between the French government, which not everyone in the French government knows exactly what was going on. They did confiscate the captured assault rifle that they're going to keep, though, just for legal reasons and to be cooperative. Rebco gave it back to them, gave them maybe not all of the of the recordings, but a good portion of them to cooperate, so they know when to pick their battles. So they helped with they helped the government in this point, but kind of pushed back on this other point. Either way, the PCs have been there for about 3 weeks, I'll say, long enough for injuries and bruises to heal up and legal processes to take their course, and it's been pretty relaxing. They're put up in a nice hotel. Adrian, as described, has a lot of nice places in it that were not quite used, as it started to started to lose enthusiasm and lose investments and things like that. But that's where we left off last time. I made sure that our characters got their money. I'm going to, partly for my for my benefit as much as anybody else's, going to go back through our PCs. Zhao Mei is our Manchurian academic and scout contact team person. Stefan Kellerman is our German, formerly Bavarian, scout, spaceship pilot guy. Gordon Wolford is our American Marine. And Horace Mares is our American colonist who grew up in Red Spec and was a colonist on Ellis. And he's kind of the survival guide type character. They all got their pay recorded on their sheet now. And while they're here, while they're in Adrian, I have decided to run them through the Beanstalk adventures. One thing, as I was reading through just to familiarize myself, one thing that kind of came in is most of my solo play has been through oracles. You roll to see what the mission is, you roll to see where they go, you roll to see who the enemy is, and then you take those prompts and you build from there. In this case, all of the NPCs, all of the locations and the scenes and everything are already laid out. So it is a little different in the fact that instead of me just coming up with things, and of course, you do have to improvise even when things are laid out for you. But I think it's a little different in this case. So it will be interesting to see. Spoiler warning, even though this was published in 1987, I'm throw a spoiler warning uh, for those of you who may be stalking around eBay for Beanstalk. So I think what I'm going to try to do starting off is I'm going to go with the scenes, and between using some oracles and some just general talking to myself kind of stuff, we're going to go through the scenes and basically see how well they do in the scene. You know, like if it says these are the these are the pieces of information, the clues that you could find, then I will use, I'll use some rolls and some oracles probably to see how many of those they might have, and then if they miss something, then I'll play it as if they miss something. All right, so we will see. I think we read this intro to Nigel Strawn already from the last one. But as they are sitting, just kind of chilling out, people are looking for maybe new work, looking for contracts, just looking for the things that might be interesting to do around Adrian, because they each got $7,000 for everything last time, which is a pretty good haul. I can't quite exactly remember how I gave them that much. Probably a bonus for all their stuff, but not bad for, well, I guess that was for 2 months' work. So, all right. 2 months' work in a gunfight. So while they are, they wake up in their rooms, and on their terminals, their comm terminals that they have in the room, each of them finds a note from Nigel Strawn, who is their Rebco rep. It's him in all his 80s corporate glory with his big fat cigar. And he asked to meet with them at the Rebco office at 9 in the morning. When they arrive, Strawn welcomes them and informs them that the person for whom they will be working has arrived and is waiting to speak with them. As they show up into the office, he leads them to a basement level briefing room. Along the way, he explains to them that their new client is Herr Professor Hans Geiger, the one man most responsible for the construction of Beta Canum's Beanstalk. All right, so at this point, he's going to explain to the players, give a brief history of who Geiger is, including his role in the Beanstalk's construction and his tragic reduction to the present position of mere advisor. As a general outline, the Bavarian company that built and oversaw the construction of the Beanstalk, once the War of German Reunification got underway, the French basically kicked all them out and said, this is our Beanstalk, this is our colony, you guys are not our friends anymore, you go away. Geiger was one of the main designers, and he was able to keep his position as an advisor to the person who now oversees operations on the Beanstalk. And so that is what is explained. He works now for the current Beanstalk director, who's Gustave Lafontaine. And he notes that Geiger still has a lot of personal attachment to the Beanstalk, like it's his pet project, and he basically wants to do anything he can to make it survive, to remain attached to it in one way or another. Um, all right. So as he gets done describing that situation, they walk into the room. The doors slide open into this more secure briefing room that they use so customers will feel a little more secure telling them things that they ought not maybe say out loud. But um, he leads them inside where they find Geiger is pacing impatiently across the far end of the room. Let's see. Let's flip over here to the characters. Okay. Herr Professor Geiger is in his mid to late 60s, slightly obese, with thinning black hair combed back to cover a balding crown. They've got comb overs even in 2300. Humanity has not progressed. Uh, um, so his clothes are uh, somewhat rumpled and old-fashioned suits. So I guess maybe his suits look like the 1970s instead of the 1980s. But there's the character portrait of him. I guess I could have held that up there longer, but um, so he's pacing back and forth impatiently, and maybe out of nervousness, maybe some nerves for being there, maybe just for wanting to get things taken care of. All right, so we'll go back to our interview. All right. So Strawn then presents them, and Strawn invites everyone to sit at a meeting table. He's sitting at one head, and Herr Professor is at the other end, and Strawn lights up his cigar. Herr Professor, would you like to explain to our contractors what you need done, please? Geiger begins by pronouncing, I am the creator of the beanstalk. Um, he continues by describing how his side of how the French, they robbed me of my position, they robbed me of my pride by kicking me from the project. Um, and he also explains that Foley and Lysander, his treacherous his friends in his old firm, have abandoned him. He says that if not for his willingness to forego his professional pride for the sake of mankind, he too would have left long ago and permitted the beanstalk to come tumbling down at the inept hands of the fools who are overseeing its operations at the present. Of course, the characters, especially Stefan, who has, he's German as well, and as we came out in the last session, is willing to, stick his thumb in the eye of the French for the sake of, national pride. But when Geiger's talking about the beanstalk crumbling because of the inept French, I think Stefan, he's nodding his head, typical Frenchies. I think Xiao Mei, I think she's a bit more skeptical. She thinks maybe he's being a little dramatic, but says nothing. After he says this, Geiger, he stops and glares around the room as if daring someone to contradict him. And let's see, do one of the characters. contradict him. I have that whole big thing right there, and I still managed to drop a die onto the floor. All right, do one of the characters go to contradict him, just and see if that starts anything. Let's see. So one is but. All right, I'm gonna say 5 or better. That someone does. Maybe they just decide that he's being a little too dramatic, and they're gonna make a comment. 5 or better. Oh, so 5 or better, and okay. So let's see. Who's going to make the comment? I don't think it'll be Stefan. I don't think it'll be Stefan because he's interested in what the professor has to say about the stupid French. So, all right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. For the other 3, so 5, 6. Okay, so that's actually Horace Mares. Um, I think Horace is going to say, because he's not smart, he's not dumb, but he has very low education. He like rolled terribly on that. His education and eloquence are 3, so he's apt to pop off with maybe not dumb things, but ignorant things. So he's gonna say, so what if it falls down? I mean, the rest of the galaxy is doing fine without him. Why not just let it fall? Now, of course, just letting it fall is not good for anybody, but old Professor Herr Geiger is going to take that personally. So that's going to be the yes and. So Geiger is going to stand up, and he slams his palms on the table and says, Strawn, you expect me to work with someone as ignorant and stupid as this? All right, so now, of course, is Strawn. The players can, or the characters can tell as they look over at him and kind of go back and forth. Horace doesn't even understand why the guy's so upset. He just made a comment, but Geiger is now personally insulted, and Strawn does not want to. He doesn't want to lose the contract, obviously. So he's. Let's see. I'm going to give him. Is he able to calm the guy down? Let's see. I have Strawn, I think, on the NPC sheet as. Where'd you go? Okay, so Nigel Strawn. All right, so he's kind of new, so his skills aren't that great. But can he calm him down? I'm going to say it's a routine roll because even though Herr Geiger is personally offended by what Horace just said, he also still wants the job done because for him the focus of his entire life is the beanstalk. This is what he's decided to do to help save the beanstalk. So we'll see if Nigel can smooth things over. Oh, oh no, no. All right, so let's see. That's a fumble. I'm not even gonna bother working on rolling up the 3 die 6 or 2 die 6 because it's not really a hazardous event. So Strawn takes the exact wrong tact. He decides to go for the bureaucratic apathy. He goes, please just describe what you need, Professor. And while Strawn was trying to go for the calming effect, Geiger storms out. And Strawn looks at Horace and shakes his head. Didn't I tell you that he was basically in love with this elevator? Horace looks at him and just shrugs. It's not like I called it ugly or anything. Um, so the first session does not go well. Um, Geiger still needs it. So the contractors, the party are dismissed, and Strawn is going to basically spend the next day and night wooing the wooing Geiger to let his team have another chance and apologize and buy him a nice Bavarian dinner or whatever at the top place that is still open in Adrian. However, I'm going to note that that's going to come as a penalty. I'm just going to note that penalty to final pay. That's going to be the consequence of that disastrous meeting. Penalty to pay. So basically, no bonus. No bonus. All right. Um, Now, in one sense, I guess I could have allowed I could have decided to let one of the characters go talk to him, go talk to Geiger. But I think in this case, the um, Nigel Strawn wants to take care of himself. One, because he's trying to build up his career, and so he's going to take a personal interest in making sure that the contracts and stuff that he sets up are good. Um, so he, they go out and they have, they spend the day eating out or whatever. Does this cause any kind of conflict between the party? Um, Now they are looking for a new job, and Horace's comments were not beneficial. So um, they're still they're still professionals. So I'm going to say unlikely, but five or higher, there's going to be some kind of conflict. Start with that. Okay, so no conflict. They just all kind of shrug their shoulders and say, "Oh, that's Horace." And then the next day, they get the same thing. They get a summons to go back to the negotiations. Horace is given a little extra note from Nigel to not speak unless spoken to, kind of thing. So Horace, uh, he doesn't take it personally. He's used to being treated that way. He grew up that way with people telling him to shut up, basically. So he doesn't want to. He's kind of a pleaser, in a sense. So he doesn't want to get the rest of the group mad at him. So he chooses not to make an issue of it. Um, so they start over, and Geiger feels the need to re-explain everything to them while the characters, the party, sit and look interested and nod their heads in the same places that they they did before. Um, and as he finishes up um, talking about the tower or the beanstalk, before any of the group can say anything, uh, Nigel Strawn says, "Perhaps you should get to the details of what exactly it is you want done, Herr Professor." Geiger adopts the lecturing tone, obviously well practiced as a professor, and he explains that um, the sensors within the skin of the beanstalk indicate that a chemical reaction may be taking place between certain mesospheric metallic ions and the substance of the beanstalk itself. And that, if his suspicions are correct, that reaction may be gaining in speed logarithmically with the passage of time. Um, and he looks around, Geiger looks around with the expectation that everybody else understands the same dire uh, predicament that he does. Um, okay, so and most other people don't really understand too much about this. Let's see. Does anyone have like a engineering? Stefan may have something like that. Let's see. Okay, Xiao Mei's not mechanical. Horace, he has mechanics, but I don't think it's like that. I think what we're looking for is more of an engineering. No, okay, so no one in the group has any advanced engineering type skills. Yeah. All right, so he looks around, and after no one replies, they just kind of stare at him. He shakes his head and then takes on less of a lecture tone and more of a talking to children tone. Horace, who wants to ask, he doesn't say anything. Stefan, who does want to help, his German brother, asks, what exactly does that mean? What is the danger? I know that was sounding more like Count Chocula than a German. So, let's see. All right. What this means is that Beta Canum's mesosphere, that's the layer of atmosphere that lies between 40 and 80 kilometers, there are certain metal ions which appear to be eroding the surface of the beanstalk, and that process of erosion, which is where things wear down, he looks down at them as he makes these comments, and it's increasing, the rate of the erosion is increasing as time goes on. If allowed to continue, the beanstalk will eventually fail, with the first 48 to 80 kilometers falling back to Beta Canum's surface, where it will do considerably more damage than those 40 cars that fell some years ago, 7 years ago. And of course, he's looking at Horace like, he's explaining to Horace, because if that much mass falls down onto the colony, it will be catastrophic, which is why we can't let it fail. And the remaining length of the beanstalk, starship terminal and all, will go flying off uncontrolled into space as the tether snaps. What I need you to do is I need you to ride up the beanstalk and take samples of the surface of the beanstalk and of the atmosphere surrounding it at that level in the mesosphere. And I need you to return those samples to me for analysis. Okay, so at this point, it's described that the players will have many questions, which, makes sense. Let's see. All right, so let's see, who's I think Xiao Mei will probably, she's our best, she's our academic, so we'll have her roll. What would be best? I don't know that info gathering would count, although maybe. And she does have a high education. Some of these questions are going to be not necessarily of a scientific, but more of a tactical nature. So we're just going to start off with a roll for her. And it has a list of questions here. that the PCs, relevant questions that the PCs might ask, and then the type of answer to get. So I'm going to give her a roll. Okay, so that's 8. And let's see. We'll give her intelligence, and we'll say info gathering. Um, so I think that will cover. I think that will get us through the first say 3 questions. So she asks, because they, um, what what is this about 40 cars falling 7 years ago? Because none of them are from Beta Canem, or so they don't know anything about it. Um, Geiger details the history of the accident, including the fact that a British team of investigators has been appointed to determine the cause of the accident, um, so that they would be seen as being impartial, since there were a lot of tensions going on between the French and the Germans with the War of Reunification. Um, But they've been investigating, but at this point they've revealed nothing of importance in the last 7 years of research. Um, of course, I have filed a report about the accident with La Fontaine, but he's never replied to it. Let's see. He will not tell them the conclusions of his report, um, which, uh, if they do manage to get him. Let's see. Does she? I think she rolled pretty well, so I think she's going to do a follow up on that. Now, this is a. Okay, so I guess maybe I was using the task as described in the book is to discover Geiger's conclusions. Uh, is routine psychology or information gathering. So she will try to press him on that and her info gathering, and she has both of those, and they're both at 2. So die 10 plus 2. Do they get 3? No, 4, 5. No. Okay. So um, because he will say that he's not fully over the debacle from from yesterday. So she asked so what were your conclusions? And so while he agreed that it does have to do something um, with that, more along the lines of him not trusting the French and how they're taking care of his beanstalk. Um, it does not matter what was in my report, and so they're not going to get that. Um, and so the next question is, we'll say it's from not Horace. Horace is going to keep his mouth shut because every time he starts to talk, Strawn and probably a couple of the other people give him the side eye. Um, let's see. We'll say Gordon. He's the kind of down to earth, more tactical kind of guy. He asks, "Why don't you just have the French firm which runs the beanstalk, which you work for, from what you said? Why don't you just have them take the samples?" Geiger shakes his head and waves some of the cigar smoke out of his face. Um, I'm afraid that the director will not believe me, especially since he ignored me in the past on other issues. So I don't even want to know. Or I don't even want to try. It'd be a waste of my time. Plus, if he were to be suspicious of what I was saying, he would think I was just trying to make him look bad and possibly use it as a reason to kick me out of the company. Then we'll say Stefan, the spacewalker, the most experienced of the. Well, I guess he and Gordon are both pretty experienced space folks. Stefan asks, "So exactly how will we get these samples?" Um, so Geiger, he says, "You will have to apply to the director for permission. It would be best if you present yourselves as a scientific team, maybe, uh, and you want to take samples from Beta Canum's mesosphere in order to study its unusual metallic ion content. For I'm not the only one who's noticed it, it's just not a concern for most people, uh, except for some bored French weathermen. Um, and then, really, the only way that you'll be able to do it is to ride a capsule up the beanstalk and set up the sample equipment when you reach the mesosphere. Afterwards, you'll ride the capsule back down, or take a capsule back down because it will go all the way up to the top. And then you'll have to take a second capsule back down and report to me with the findings. Let's see. The obvious questions. Let's see. So that was enough. Let's see. Do our folks... How smart are our folks about asking more of these questions? Oh, okay. So that's good. So that's, I think that will actually cover the rest of the questions here. So Jaume asks, is Director Lafontaine likely to believe such a story and grant permission? Geiger immediately goes into a tirade about what an imbecile Lafontaine is, as well as his family of bureaucratic fools, a bunch of nepotism going on, but what can you expect from a French empire? And says that Lafontaine's family is spread all through the French colony's government. He says that if Lafontaine doesn't grant them permission, then I will break him into pieces with my own hands. All right, so not a particularly useful answer, but that's the answer he gives. And so she follows up, what relatives does he have in the French Ministry of the Interior? Does he have any relatives within the French Ministry of the Interior? Let's see. I think she actually has bureaucracy, so that might be something. Let's see. Yeah, she's got bureaucracy at 1. So I think she probably she knows enough about how that works. And he says Lafontaine's nephew is vice president in charge of maintenance for the beanstalk, which is probably why Geiger's report was not acted upon. And his sister-in-law is the commissioner of exports. All right. So now they know that that he has people, other people that are kind of involved in the workings of the beanstalk, which not immediately useful, maybe prove useful later on. And we'll have Gordon, our Marine. So how long before this beanstalk is destroyed? Which I think he actually did already answer, but it will most likely take at least a year. But the point at which the beanstalk would have to be shut down for repairs, rather than developing some way to prevent it, might be nearly at earliest 2 months. And the point at which it becomes irreparable, even though it will not have broken, might be only 6 months away. There's no way to say exactly without these samples, which is why I need these samples. So Stefan, he then follows up with, well, why not just allow it to be shut down? You can cause embarrassment to the French director that you hate so much, and prove to the entire human space that the French are fools. I'm afraid that if there's any shakeup in the organization which sees the beanstalk, then I too will still be removed. The beanstalk is my life. If they get rid of the company, if they close it down, say they bring in an entire outside force to work on it after the incompetence of Lafontaine is exposed, then they'll probably just wipe out everybody. They'll wipe out the whole company. They'll get rid of everybody and bring in their own staff. And I don't want to risk not being part of fixing my beanstalk. Let's see. All right, so we're at 40 minutes, and so there are a few other questions. Strawn asks a couple minor points of interest type questions, but nothing else that is necessarily helpful that they can think of. So Strawn asks asks then if that's all, and Geiger looks. He says, "That's all I know. That's what I need." And I will try to make myself available to answer any other questions that might come along. Strong looks at the players. Excuse me. And or the players. Looks at the party and says, "I'll arrange for a let's see. What's that? Okay, so they do. It looks like they do have a small spaceport. So I think what they'll probably, I'll arrange for a suborbital, or a flight, depending on whichever one is available quickest. Again, the same, and he gives them. He hands out voucher forms. Says you can wait until you get to Premiere to use these voucher forms if you need to order anything or whatnot. Same rules apply, we need receipts for what you get. And if you are suspected of maybe trying to take advantage of this, then, you may not get reimbursed. So they, Geiger steps up, Strawn escorts him out and motions for the party to follow. They ride up the elevator back to the main offices, and Geiger stomps off in a huff, and Strawn gives him some final words of encouragement. I should have everything set up. Be prepared to travel by tomorrow. I will forward your boarding passes and travel papers to Premiere. And be careful. I see on your resumes that some of you do have experience working in vacuum. But still, it sounds like it could be dangerous. But good luck. And the party goes on, gets a rest, hangs out, and the next morning, the boarding passes, the travel, the itineraries, all that stuff, all that travel paperwork is downloaded onto their terminals in the room, and then they download it onto their portacomps or onto their phones, whatever they have that'll hold it. And they ride by. They're taken out to the spaceport, which is a small spaceport, but there are a couple ships coming and going. They load up, and with a press of acceleration into the scramjet, they're off to Premiere. And we'll call it there. Thanks for joining in, and I hope you had a good time. Happy gaming.